Lumos! Today's lesson is all about Flexbox, a tool so powerful at centering and aligning your content, it's almost like magic. In the past, you may have used things like Wix, WordPress, or Squarespace to just drag and drop content wherever you'd like, but not here. Webflow follows the main principle of web design, which is the box model. This is essentially the concept that everything you build and create lives within a box. So once you start training your brain to think and design in this way, you'll be able to apply the properties of Flexbox to build anything you can imagine. And soon enough, you'll be a true design wizard. So stop getting frustrated trying to center those headings or align those images. I'm going to dive into the basics of Flexbox to make sure you can make your websites look fantastic. Nox. So here we are, we have a simple page. We've got the body and tan behind here. We've got a section element right inside here, which is this big gray block. And then we just have 3 divs here, little character divs with some background images set. So right away you can look at this and see it's just boxes within boxes, right? And when we want to position one of these boxes a certain way, we have to target the parent container, not the box itself. So the body is the parent container of the gray section, as you see here. It goes body, main section, and then 3 boxes in there. So if we target the body, we're going to make this a flex container. And now we have control over the big section inside it. So when we go back here, we can change this. We can put it in the center. We can align it in the center there. We can put it on the right side or the left side. We have complete control over the big gray section because its parent is a flex container. So let's make this live right in the center. That always looks nice. Now we want to position the character divs here. And though they technically are in the body, their parent container, the direct parent, is the main section. So now we also have to make that a flex container to style these correctly. So with our gray main section selected, I'm going to turn it into a flex container. And right away, you see some things starting to happen here. So now all these are the children elements. And now when we affect its parent, we can change them how we want to lay them out. We can put them in the middle. We can put them on the bottom. We can put them on the top. We can center them here. We can put them the bottom in the middle. We have complete control over these guys here. We can even put them in the middle and justify the space between. And that pushes everything out to the edge. Or we can justify the space evenly, and that gives some even spacing around each side of the child elements. Now the flex direction of a container will be horizontal by default, you'll see that here, but with multiple children involved, we can set the display to vertical and change things even more. So when we do that, boom. You see, it still gives us the same positioning options though. We can put these on the left, the right, center, bottom. We can do the same sort of styling properties, but in the vertical fashion. So that is completely up to you depending on what your design is. Let's take a look at an example where we may have multiple children in a flex container. So here we have the same basic setup. The tan body is a flex container to the gray section element. So I can just make this flex, center this. So now our main section is in the center. And the gray section has a width and height of 90% of the viewport height. So that way we can just see what we're working with here. But as you can see here with the size dimensions we have set, each of these little character cards are 200 pixels in width. They spill over and obviously it looks pretty bad. So instead we can set our main section to flex. And already we see some things taking shape. Now that their parent element is flexed, the children will behave how we tell them to behave. We can put them in the center. We can put them on the bottom. We can put them anywhere we like. We can even stretch them out if we really wanted to. Honestly, some designs, this would be a really cool approach, but not what we're really going for here. But you'll see here, each div has that width of 200 pixels, and this is clear when we're in the display block view, right? They're kind of like perfectly square. But then in Flex, you'll see they do condense a little bit so they fit inside of their containers. This could ruin the design as you scale down, especially as you start to adjust the screen sizes as you see. To fix this, we can set the children's display in their container to wrap. So when we click this inside of our main section, children wrap, you'll see how they push onto a new line and they maintain their original width dimensions. And when I resize, instead of squishing, they will just continue to wrap and go onto new lines, even as the mobile sizes appear. And this also works even if we display vertical. We can still align our things around, but they will still wrap so they don't squish together. Let's take a look at divs that have different kinds of content children within them as well. So inside the gray section here, same setup. First thing we want to do is center that big gray section. So flex, let's just put it in the center. There we go. Now we look at our main section here. We want to do the same thing. I'm gonna make sure this is display flex, and we can just put those all in the middle there. Perfect. So again, looking back at this, we can see all the different boxes, right? The body is the first box, and then the main section is that second box. And then each of the house cards of the Hogwarts houses have its own div, and inside those divs are just all the different content. So again, start thinking of things in terms of boxes, right? Everything's just a big box. So in order to style the Gryffindor, the title, the description, and this little button, we're gonna have to target its container, which is house div. And going forward, you'll see all of these have the same classes applied, so when we affect one of them, all of them will change. First thing we can do inside house div is make sure the display is flex. And you'll see it look pretty horrible. This is because it's set to horizontal. Everything stacks outside of the container it's in. So instead we can set it to vertical. And there we go. Now everything's back and maintained inside. And we can set everything to center as well. And if you have paragraph elements or certain long periods of text, you can text align those and then center that even more. And you can stretch the content out if you really want. Make sure you have equal spacing on either side. You can just put everything in the center. On the left align, right align. You have complete control because the parent container is flex. And when we resize our screen a little bit, we'll see how things get squished and condensed just like before, right? So to fix that, all we have to do is click wrap for the children, and you'll see they stack onto different lines. Now we have some set dimensions on these of 400 pixels height, so it doesn't look as pretty, but you get the idea. You also have the option to reverse the order. If you click this button here, the direction, the flex direction, you can reverse it upside down. This reverses the order of the contents within it. Doesn't look that great, obviously. And when we're in our main section, we can also go down, and when these children elements are wrapped, we can reverse the order of this. That puts Hufflepuff first, or we switch it back, put Gryffindor first. So be careful with this though, because as this changes the visual representation that you can see, the order of the document flow behind the scenes stays the same. So in this navigator here, you see Gryffindor's first, and then it kind of goes in order. Though we're changing it here, screen readers will always go by this. So people who can't see or are visually impaired, their devices will go in the order behind the scenes, and that's not always going to be an accurate representation if you play around with the flex order. So don't use it all the time. Lastly, let's take a look at how Flexbox can work in tandem with other display properties, like the grid. So here, you'll see all we do, we have a body and we have a grid inside. It's just a 3-column grid. Each one has a div block as a cell inside of it. So first thing we can do is go to our body and we can display that flex, make sure it's in the center. We can put that at the top or we can put it at the bottom. But as we've learned, center always looks nice. Now let's go inside of our grid div, which is the parent container of all the different child elements, the poster, the heading, the description, all those things. So the grid div is the parent container that we want to make flex, right? Because we're affecting the children inside it. We can make this flex. We don't want it horizontal, we'll make it vertical, and we can center it in the middle there. Now we could justify the content how we want it, add some space in between, but you'll see sometimes it doesn't always give you the right accurate display because things don't always line up perfectly. You'll see here this paragraph is lower than this one depending on the amount of content. So one trick we can do, make sure it's in the center aligned, but justify it to the top. That way everything remains in the same line. But now we'll see these buttons here, right? Because we are in a grid, the div blocks stretch to fill the space inside of each cell. So if you see here in the grid, everything is aligned, the div here, everything is aligned stretched in a grid by default. And since the card elements are flexed, we can select a child element and push it down to the bottom to maintain equal styling across the board. So we do this by giving the element a top margin of auto. So these buttons, we want them to align on the bottom there, right? We go to the button element, all we do is click auto, margin top. There we go. So now everything aligns nicely, and the main div just has a little bit of padding that keeps it from pressing against the edge of the card there. So that's Flexbox, a really powerful tool. You're gonna use it all the time. So start thinking and designing in terms of the box model. Visit other sites that you go on a lot and try to see how the content is laid out and how you might rebuild it using the box model and where the box structures take place. Just remember, if you wanna position something, don't target the element you wanna position, target its parent container and make that a flex container. Hope you got some value out of this. If you did, always appreciate a like and a subscribe. Also, let me know your Hogwarts house down below. I am a proud Hufflepuff, but also got a Gryffindor shirt underneath. I think I'm a balance in between, but I don't know. Until then, my friends, mischief managed.